Welcome to Field Foley, episode 15. Joining us today is Bastian Gerner, a renowned freelance Foley artist and Dolby Atmos studio owner from Düsseldorf, Germany. With well over 70 film credits to his name, Bastian is a master at bringing sound to life through Foley work. His expertise extends to studio organization, inventory management, and field recording. And he loves to share his experience through his fantastic videos as the Foley teacher on LinkedIn and Instagram. For the past 4 years, he's also worked in the world of video game Foley, contributing his audio artistry to Ubisoft's global audio team. Today, we delve into the captivating world of Foley art, Dolby Atmos, and the intricacies of crafting soundscapes for both cinema and video games. Welcome, Bastian, and thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a great honor. I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you. So the first question I have is, that's instantly when I saw your profile picture, is when did you decide you wanted to own your own Dolby Atmos studio?
I mean, the idea was there since the format was born. Unfortunately, I never was able to work in a facility with an installed Dolby Atmos system. So I left De Facto Motion in 2019 before they installed the system. And then I went to Ubisoft where we planned to build a studio there, which didn't happen before I left the company. So when it was clear that I'm able to build my own studio, I definitely wanted to have it as an Atmos studio.
And so did you build like the whole studio yourself, or did you contract people for certain aspects of it?
No, I did it with a complete team of experts. So the acoustic was done by MB Acoustic from Osnabrück. And the studio planning was done by Heiner Niemann, who works for Digital Audio Service in Hamburg.
That's awesome. And how does it work? How do you get like a certified Dolby Atmos studio? Is it like, do you have to go through a process after you build it to get it like certified or something?
Yeah, but it's more before you build it, you should start with that. So when we were planning the studio, we had David Ziegler from Dolby involved throughout the whole process. So he could always see where we're going to place the speakers. And he reviewed it and gave us okay. And then once the studio was there, I had a measurement certification day with Dolby. So they sent Roger Baltensperger from Flameworks Audio in Zurich. And he flew in and then measured all my speakers and did the whole setting of the delays and the EQs according to the Dolby curve.
That is very cool. That sounds like a lot of work. But would you say it is worth it in the end? It's like, are you happy with your studio?
Yes, definitely. I mean, I also filmed the whole process and made a documentary out of it, like a 42-minute documentary. It will be released this year.
Nice.
And it was a lot of work, a lot of planning, a lot of constructing, and so many things to consider, starting with the electricity. I only had like one phase in the room, and 3,500 watts is not enough for all the gear in my studio. So I think I had to invest 6,500 euros only for getting the electricity in that room.
Oh, wow. That sounds like a lot. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was quite an undertaking, but definitely worth it. So I'm sitting here enjoying myself every day. Finally, I have a place where I can really rely on my setup and be just happy with listening to stuff. And then also, it's the first time actually I have a real poured concrete on earth ground level that I can do my Foley on, which is also a game changer for me. So even though I don't have so much space, it's only like 19 square meters, I'm really able to do all the work I want to do, and I can do it on the highest level.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I resort to like bringing in stones and bricks and stuff like that to create my mini surfaces here. So I can appreciate having like a whole concrete floor. That's a big help.
Yeah, it's really something else. But also the little stones, if you decouple them properly from the floor, you can achieve great results with that.
And yeah, working with the Dolby Atmos format, how does it impact the way you approach sound recording and mixing? Does it like influence it right at the recording stage, or is it more in like after you recorded it, you place it and you have like this great room to mix it properly in?
So as I'm working in Foley, my recordings are all in mono. I tried certain things with binaural and also with a stereo shotgun microphone from Audio Technica. And we thought maybe for video games it is interesting, and for a couple of incidents it actually was, but to be honest, I don't see like on a daily basis the use for that. So like 99% of my recordings are mono, and so yeah, it's more this object-based approach that I can then use later on in the mixing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that was what I was also thinking. I mean, I myself also record most of the things in mono because it will be placed in engine, and the engines nowadays have like great convolution reverbs and other stuff to place them properly. The only thing I really like is I use either stereo recordings, or nowadays I have an ambisonics mic, which is cool for creating like ambiences in the background.
Yeah, of course.
Because you can place those, and at least it like, yeah, you can turn your head around and it actually works with that format. But yeah, otherwise most of the things, of course, are mono. So
yeah,
same here.
So in video games, when you have like a situation where the player is kind of fixed in a position, then you can approach audio on a 2D level, and record binaurally and create that environment natively then with that recording. But as soon as you start moving within the scene, that already is then obsolete.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's just like edge cases, maybe some cutscenes, or yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but even in cutscenes nowadays, you can move as a player.
Right. Interactive cutscenes. Most of the time, those are implemented. Yeah. It's always bad if you take control from the player. That makes you aware of it's a game and now I can do anything.
That also makes like Foley so much more complicated because you have to divide all the sounds in so many sections, and you cannot also, as a Foley artist, from a performance perspective, when I approach a linear scene that is really linear, I can already work perspective into my performance.
Yeah.
And that is really, really important to be able to, let's say, monitor your work or be happy with your work while you do it. Because let's say there are 4 people walking in a scene and you have different perspectives, foreground, background, and then you perform everything on 100% protagonist level. After you're done, you will have like such a chaos within the playback that I would be really unhappy to deliver something to a re-recording mixer or a supervising sound editor, because there's so much work then to be done to make it work. So as Foley artists, we try to build the perspective, create the perspective, and make it already work on the Foley stage. And with the interactive cutscene, that's not possible, because I have to trust that the game engine is doing all those, perspective changes and attenuations. So it was really like a different approach to me, and I had to wrap my head around that. Also, like for example, not cutting the high end on my Foley was the first learning process I had when I started working in games. Because in film, I want the Foley to be, let's say, in the lower third of the screen.
Yeah.
And I don't want it to be in the top area where the faces are, where the speech is. And that is not possible when I record for a video game, because that again is also handled by the engine and the middleware.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes you need those Foley sounds to be really upfront if you need like the player feedback, and so that is sometimes even decided like in engine with the dynamic mixing. So how do you then approach like creating specific Foley for video games, do you do different perspectives so you have a range to choose from later on when it gets implemented, or do you try to find like the most neutral perspective, which I don't know if that exists even?
Yeah, I would go for one perspective that is also due to the rooms I worked in so far. I believe if you want to go with, far, mid-far, and close perspective, you need a really big Foley stage, because otherwise you cannot get around the early reflections, and therefore it does not make sense. And to the contrary, I thanks to Tim Nielsen, by the way, he had this microphone tutorial where he showed the accelerometer from Brühl and Kjær. And I looked into that, and we bought this thing. And this is just like the best contact microphone I can think of. And it enabled me to record like really close-up perspectives for VR. That is like unprecedented to me. Like every time I'm using this thing, like, this is like connected with beeswax to the object, and then you have like a very crisp, full frequency range sound that is just so enjoyable. And especially for VR, you can create this hyper realistic closeness for objects that you sometimes need in VR. Like imagine you have something in your hand, and then you hold it close to your ear and shake it. Let's say a shaker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then if you have this ultra close perspective, then it really feels that it's really in front of your ear, right?
Yeah.
And we did that with like a knife or something. And it just was an amazing result, and gives a lot of immersion. So I enjoy this accelerometer a lot. Also, when I record, let's say, metal resonances, I put the thing on the metal resonator, and then another world opens up, and it's just so much more intense, and it's unbelievable. Like I did that just yesterday, and I was so happy about it.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. New gear stuff is always fun, and that one is on my list as well to get, but for now I haven't had like something where I was like, okay, it's worth it to buy this now. But now that I hear you talk about it, it's gone up on my to buy list again.
It's unfortunately the one that Tim Nielsen recommended is not in stock at the moment, so we have to maybe wait for next year till they have it again.
Okay, but it's good for my budget then. Yeah, and speaking of recording, one question I always ask all my guests is, what was the first sound you ever recorded, and why did you record it?
My voice as a rapper.
Your voice as a rapper, German or English?
German.
Oh, nice. And does this still exist, or is this something which is so far back?
Yeah, I'm still active. No, I'm still active, very passionate about it.
Nice. Maybe we can link this in the show notes. That would be interesting.
Yeah, of course.
Very cool. So your recording started with, more like a music background then, I would say, right?
Yes.
Yeah, most of the people come from music. And but then what sparked you interested in Foley specifically and made you pursue it as a career?
That was a long process. So it started after maybe 7 years into the music world, trying to become a successful rapper so that I can live from that. And then at a certain point, I decided to switch my priorities, because there were only 2 things in my life. Like, let's say since I was 16, to me it was clear I'm either make it as a rapper or as a sound engineer. So, pursuing that rap career, the sound engineering was always like a side hustle that I never could get far in. And then after 7 years, I said, so age 22, 23 maybe, I decided to look into film sound, because that was at that point the only thing I could imagine that I have not looked into. So I wanted to make a career out of that, and that's what I then eventually ended up doing. So my path led me through not being accepted at the university in Babelsberg, and then finding an apprenticeship in Berlin as a Mediengestalter, like a media designer for audiovisual media. And there I could learn everything, because I did this in a post-production sound facility, Basis Berlin. And from those guys, I learned basically everything, like all the necessary techniques of dialogue editing, sound effects editing, mixing, and I did it with real projects there for almost 3 years. And that basically set me up for my career. So after that, I worked in another studio called De Facto Motion. I stayed there for 7 years. And within that 7 years, I then developed into becoming a Foley artist.
Nice. And yeah, speaking of like especially Foley, because it's something that I feel not a lot of people really know about. I mean, even if I talk to people that don't know much about sound, if I mention Foley, sometimes they say, oh yeah, there's the people that make sound with like different props or something. Mm-hmm. But I mean, there's a lot to it. Just like you said, like perspective and finding the right props, which is also interesting, and also like performing the right performance to the goal you have. But like for yourself as a Foley artist, what is your favorite part of the process? Is it the recording, or like the finding the props, or when you like nail the performance and you say like, ah yes, this one feels right?
The whole thing is really enjoyable. Like being not in front of the computer all the time, moving, standing up, looking for things, using my body, using my creativity. I enjoy the process of just having something in front of me in the picture, and then thinking about it. Okay, how can I make sound for that? And this is not really this, thinking. It's more this creative process, like just letting the creative thing happen, and then just follow that impulses and try it, and then realizing sometimes that doesn't work, and then trying again, and then nailing it, as you said, is then always like a very pleasant thing. So the reward is always there. Like when you work, you finish a scene, you play back the scene. It sounds great. Okay, let's go to the next. So it's like a constant affirmation of doing great stuff, and it's so enjoyable. And after a full day of work, you then also feel your body. And I mean, it's really physical. When I started with that, I had like pain issues with different sections of my body, and only after a while I adjusted to the thing. And I realized that now, because when I worked in games, there was not so much footsteps that I did. And when you work in linear media, that is maybe 1/3 up to 1/2 of your day. And not doing footsteps then changed my body again. So when I'm doing footsteps now, because I'm now starting as a freelance Foley artist doing linear stuff again, I just recorded a cinema documentary this week. I instantly feel my body, my hip, my knees.
Yeah.
And I have to build those muscles again now.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that's always also rewarding for me, the activeness of the job, because it's not just like standing or sitting in front of a microphone and rattling stuff around. It's like you move a lot, you try to perform and contort your body sometimes in different ways to get that sound. And for me, it's also the field recording part is like this getting out into the nature or woods. And sometimes I have to like hang over some kind of cliff to dangle the microphone somewhere in a river or something, which is also like a test on muscle strength. And but that's really cool, the active part. I can also relate to. But yeah, I agree with you. I mean, also for me, it's everything is enjoyable. The only thing that I really don't like is after recording lots of hours of material, like going through all that stuff. But just the beginning phase, because then you listen to stuff and then you find things that you didn't hear while recording, which is also cool. But yeah.
You mean in relation to field recording?
Yeah.
Yeah. You have to be very organized, right?
Well, I would say it helps, but otherwise you can also thrive on chaos. But
need more time then, but
yeah, more time. But I mean, it depends on stuff. What I really like is that just like you said, you talked about footsteps, and maybe I want to stress that point a bit, that you will probably record footsteps every time anew for every project, right?
Yeah, for a film, of course.
Yeah. That is also something that I'm trying to build a library, but still, I mean, library of sounds that I can't easily reproduce. So if I have some prop that I have just access for a week or something, I try to record as much as possible so I can fall back on that. But for everything else, I'm trying to do, even in field recording, I'm trying to do a bit of the Foley approach of whenever a new project comes along, I record anew, the nature, I try to record maybe another river somewhere else or with another microphone. So on the one hand, because I really enjoy the process, but also on the other hand, I have a feeling that I want to make a unique soundscape for every project and don't want to, like, after, 10 years, have all the libraries and just use 90% from my computer.
Yeah, so, that's a very honorable approach, and I think the audio industry needs that. And I remember myself being a sound effects editor for many years, not recording my own sounds. I really just started that when I became a Foley artist. And being a Foley artist now for many years, I have a complete different understanding of sound effects editing and sound design, because now I would always go for recording my own sounds and using libraries only as an addition to that.
Yeah.
And that's why I also encourage everyone, even in my coachings, to do exactly that. So with my coaching, I enable audio professionals to build a, let's say, modular Foley setup within their studio, if it's an edit suite or a home studio or even a mixing room like mine, because I think the whole industry can profit from that, and media in general can be even more, as you said, unique and more creative if those creative sound people in the world that have the capability to record their own sounds and have the imagination of that do that on a daily basis. You know, when you have this setup in your corner and you're looking for a sound, you don't have to go to the library. You can also have a little amount of, props and then just record the stuff. And this is something I want to bring to the world. That is something I found for myself that is so valuable that I'm enjoying to talk about that with others and even enable people to do that. So the people I coached so far, they could come up with even a footstep performance within their 10 square meter Paris city apartment. Like there's one coachee of mine, Jonas, shoutouts. He lives in the middle of Paris, has a 10 square meter room in his flat, and he delivered me a Foley scene that was just incredible after 4 weeks.
Nice. That's also something I wanted to talk about, because you say about teaching and coaching, and you're also sharing a lot of your tricks with short videos. Why did you decide to do that? Just because you like it? Because it also, it probably takes some work to edit all those videos, and you post them a lot. I, for myself, I really appreciate it. You're doing a great job. I always love seeing your videos in my feed, so Thanks. Great job on that.
Yeah, this was planned for a long time. So I think a couple of years ago, I kind of realized that being an influencer is a smart thing to do, because it's like my business card out in the world, and it enables me to build a network around me without networking. And I understood that, and because of that, I built my studio exactly in that way. So the whole studio is optimized for content creation. Like I have professional film lighting here and 2 Sony full format cameras, and everything is basically designed for that reason, so that I can create content in here. And I also enjoy myself doing that, and that's why I went for it. And it is a journey, I think, that is worth for everyone who can see him or themselves in that role.
Yeah, that makes sense. As I said, the videos are amazing. Makes sense that there's this kind of setup behind that. Awesome.
And there's a process behind it, and a whole science nowadays. And it's really interesting. Like, I started out maybe in April with this channel, The Foley Teacher, and not really knowing what I'm doing, and it took me a long time to figure out how I get my audio and my camera into OBS and everything works. So that alone cost me maybe 3 months, 4 months until I finally started. And when I started, I didn't even use the setup. I used my iPhone for that because the thing didn't really work how I wanted. And I thought to myself, like I said to myself, no, you have to start now. Even if the content is not the best, just do it right now, because otherwise you lose more time. And then I started just using the Instagram app with this dual camera thing, and nothing really happened. I just had 200 followers after 3 months or something. And then I met this guy from Brazil, Israel Branco from Audiofilico, shoutouts. And he approached me telling me like, look, I have this channel and I'm doing a Foley Tuesday content thing every Tuesday. So maybe you can send me a video and then I will post it on my channel.
Cool.
And he had back then like 5,000 followers. And I thought, yeah, cool idea. So I had a 2-hour meeting with him just to get to know each other. And he was so kind to like share his understanding of social media. And he gave me really that final push with that, saying to me like, send me 2 small little short videos and then I will post them. So this was like due on a Friday, and I was traveling that Friday, and I had only like 1 hour or something to get those 2 videos before I had to catch my train. And then everything kind of fell into place. So all the thinking I put into this whole like, okay, I need an entertaining short format kind of thing. This thought was ongoing in my head for like 2 years maybe.
Yeah.
But I had no idea how to make it real, make it happen. And then when I was forced to do it, all those words just came out of my mouth, like peace, the Foley teacher, and this whole thing. I didn't plan that,
Yeah, perfect.
But it was there, and then he also convinced me that I have to post every day. And then another friend gave me another sentence that was really useful to me. He said, always compare yourself to yourself the day before, and not look up to all those big influencers that have like millions of followers, because they have a big team already, and that is not helpful. So that enabled me to really do that. And I mean, I'm really astonished by the amount of time I'm doing this right now. It's maybe 3-4 months now, and the development I'm going through is so immensely rapid. So that the video from 4 months to the videos I do now, there's such a big difference already. And now my whole understanding of social media broadened. So I know now that I'm only at maybe 10% of what I could achieve with this in terms of content quality. I'm not measuring the amount of reach I can get with it.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it makes sense that you, just like you said, this comparing yourself to your version of yesterday is a very healthy approach, and also something that brings you forward in small steps. And then if you, like you said, if you're doing every day, then every day you're doing a small step, then after a few months, you've made a big leap. So that is amazing.
Yeah, that's true.
And yeah, could you maybe describe like a typical day at your studio? I mean, do you like have your plans where it's like, now I do this Foley teacher content, now I have this project, or is it like every day is different?
I'm working on that. So up to a couple of weeks ago, I was in that regular context of, doing my work for Ubisoft, and then making my coachings at the side. So I had like a couple of days where I had some time slots where I did my coachings then. And the content thing always happened in between, and I ended up sometimes being so tired that I have to like stand up in the middle of the night and then shoot the video, and then after that going back to sleep and then stand up in the next morning. So that was not really healthy. And now I'm at a point where I try to record my content on Tuesdays. I always book like a slot with my hairdresser, and then get my looks, and then try to record everything on that Tuesday.
Oh, nice.
And it doesn't work very well, but I managed to do it a couple of times already, recording 6-7 reels in one day on a Tuesday with my shiny hair. And other weeks it didn't really work out, but the longer I do it, the more, accustomed I get to it. And that's really the way I want to do this also in the future and get better at that.
Yeah, that seems like a good plan. And yeah, when you're doing those reels, do you have like a plan beforehand what kind of styles you want to do, what kind of sounds you want to do? Or is it something that you have to do anyway and have to record this specific sound and then you can like also make the dual use and make a reel out of it?
Yeah, it's kind of both. But also, this is something I really want to work on, because I realized the more you plan your content, the more you plan your hooks, the more you script your reels, the better they will be and the more reach they will get and the less retention you will have within the video. Because like the first second is the most important and every second after that is the second most important. And I understood that, and this is not achievable by just getting dressed and start doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my approach so far, to be honest. And I'm already working on some reels that have that kind of thinking within them. I couldn't produce them so far, but I already start to think more about hooks, how to engage people more, how to make them, see themselves as participants and not only as watchers.
Yeah.
And to give value in portions so that the people, stay on the video. And these are all things I know now and I want to learn more and I want to become better at. And yeah, sometimes it's just like also working with clients. They have certain needs, certain things that we look into in the coaching. Last week we looked into ice recordings, like ice textures, how to record that in Foley. So now I'm definitely want to do 1 or 2 reels about that. And for example, another client wanted me to make sounds for a collapsing building. So I recorded the whole recording session and then made a reel out of that. And yesterday I just went live and had people watching me doing the Foley for that cinema documentary. And that also helps me, because working alone sometimes can be challenging because there's no Foley mixer involved, and also then the motivation. Sometimes I recorded myself for a couple of months, working every day on films back in 2019.
Yeah.
And sometimes it was really hard, knowing that I have only 4 days to cover a full feature film, or let's say full TV movie, with full M&E, and then being 1 day unproductive already made so much pressure, which is possible if you work as a sound effects editor and you have 2 weeks to finish the ambiences and the hard effects. You can be 1 or 2 days unproductive and then cover it on a weekend or something.
Yeah.
But it's not possible if you have 4 days and you have to be 4 days full on concentrated, 100% 8 hours in order to get the content done. And now when I'm live with people and I can explain things and I can enjoy myself sharing that with others, it already motivates me even more to get the best possible result.
Yeah, that makes sense. And now that you mentioned these deadlines, do you think there has been a shift in getting easier deadlines, or does it get even harder with all those projects that have those 4-day deadlines and you really can't miss a beat, otherwise you miss your target? Because I also really think that's something that's not only unhealthy in the long run, but it's as you said, it also stifles a bit the creativity because you're so under pressure, and when something doesn't work, then you lose time, so you probably tend to not experiment as much as you would otherwise.
I think that is just a problem of the whole linear industry, because everything is so old right now. The process of how to do Foley for a film is now very old, and all the processes are known, and people know how fast things can be done. And so no one is willing to give more money for things that can be done for less. And so I think if you're not working on very high class productions that can afford that, you will be always in the realm of being on a timeline, especially now with the whole streaming and series and 12 episodes, and everything has to be on cinema level, but you have to deliver it in an insane timeline. That is something I hear from colleagues. I never encountered that myself. Within the games industry, being employed full-time within a dev team, the whole thing was really different for me. I appreciate that also, and I'm very thankful for that I could experience that, that I have time for things, and then we can iterate and we can get to the best possible result, and time is not really an issue unless we are in the very end of the production and have to deliver, the gold master.
Yeah.
But in my time as a employee, I always was on a timeline. But that was the best possible school for me, because I had one film, one episode, one after the other, year over year over year. And that is how I got to where I am today. So it's always the perspective. Where are you in your career? What do you want to achieve? And if you don't have to do those heavy timelines, maybe you shouldn't.
Yeah.
But if you have to, what can you do? And I'm saying you should be into social media and get yourself to another level, and think about different streams of revenue. Because if I'm really honest, I'm also not willing to sit in my 100,000 euro studio and edit Foley for 380 euros per day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although I enjoy the process of editing Foley, even if it's not my Foley, I enjoy that. I love that job. But for that amount of money in our times where things get so expensive, and the salaries or the freelance money for that kind of work is the same as it was 10, 15 years ago, that doesn't make sense. And I'm not willing to get into this. And that's also why I only offer Foley or re-recording mixing, because that's the two things I can charge my studio in.
That makes sense, yeah. And maybe rolling a bit back, you mentioned like working for Ubisoft, and as far as I read, you worked for the Global Audio Group there, right?
I worked for the Düsseldorf audio service.
Oh, okay. Can you maybe discuss a bit of your experience, if you can talk about it, what that entailed, that job, and what kind of projects did you work on, and what kind of jobs did you get there?
I cannot really talk too much about that. It was just a really great experience for me to be able to see how game development is being done on that level, on a AAA level. And it's so complex, and so many things play into each other and be intertwined, and it's an amazing world and very complex world. And to get to a point where you have to think in assets, and single sounds being exported as a single sound, and delivering thousands of sounds for one project is just a different thing. And it opened up my horizon, and I'm really thankful for that experience, and also that I'm now able, after 4 years, to deliver assets for AAA, even in my 18 square meter hybrid room. I mean, that is something I'm really proud of, and the experience at Ubi was priceless.
Yeah.
And I got my international AAA credits I always wanted. That was the first thing why I went for the job, because I wanted to work on the big jobs in Berlin with Carsten Richter and Hanse Wahns, but there was no spot for me, and I wasn't up for going to London and enslave myself and my family for working on those films. So I saw the opportunity doing that with video games, and I'm really proud of the titles that will be released soon, and only after they are released I can share that I've worked on them.
Of course, yeah, the age-old problem of the NDA. But yeah, those pipelines, those production pipelines really are something else when you're first getting in touch with like AAA and getting into the nitty-gritty. It's like there's so much things attached, so many different departments, and they all have to go together to create this unique thing. It's always fascinating to me when I see a video game that's working like I would say almost flawlessly. Of course, always people will complain about bugs or about anything missing. But if I see something that's a really nice experience, I now know how much time and effort and care is behind all that to work to that level. And it's just now I'm playing Alan Wake 2 because I'm a massive fan, and this is a game that I had high hopes, but still. I hope to talk to the audio team soon as well. It's just an amazing piece of artwork, and the level of quality they delivered is just astounding to me. And working so many years on just one project, that takes a special kind of dedication.
Yeah, I remember Tim Nielsen saying when he was asked like, how long is the ideal time for you to work on a project? He said something like 3 months. And I was just thinking to myself, oh my God, you would be really unhappy with our job here.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, that's also something I really like that, because I like seeing a game coming together, and also feeling when a team really works. And right now in the projects I'm working on, it does, and that is really satisfying, because you can see that you're also influencing other things, not just sound. Maybe you're delivering a sound and then the animator says, oh, that's amazing, I'm going to change the animation so it fits better. Or maybe you have an idea that stems from a sound, and then from that come the visuals. That is always interesting to me, and I think that the game industry is probably the only industry where this happens right now, because I mean, other than like the big productions like Dune, for example, where they have those special few people that really like get hired because of their artistic skills, but otherwise you probably get the finished product and deliver sound and have no massive influence on the outcome.
Probably, yeah.
And that's something that's really cool in video games. Yeah.
So you're also working on video games?
Yeah. That's my main thing is video games. I like to play them. I like to build them. And I come from a programming background, so I have worked many years as a programmer. And so that helps a lot with also doing the audio integration and some of the audio programming stuff. So I'm trying to like fit both worlds into one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. I admire that.
Thank you. I want your studio, so I admire your studio. No, but also, I mean, as I said, like the whole thing, how you approach that. And maybe going back to the Foley aspect, because that's something that's always fascinating to me when someone has done that for a very long time, and it interested me because I'm doing it like in a, I would say, amateurish level, but trying to get better and better every day. One question that came up for me was how do you go about selecting or even creating like the perfect props for your Foley work? I mean, I would guess you would go back to some ideas you already had or some materials you know how they sound. But do you have like a structure, or is it just like a free flow experimentation phase?
So I don't build specific props myself. I also admire that, but it doesn't really like tickle my fancy, or how do you say that? So it's not something I really want to go into myself. But it's more like the free flow thing. So I think about materials, about textures, about objects, and if I see things, I always check them out. And I remember like saying when I was starting with that, I'm not gonna be the person who's like, taking everything and making like thinking about the sound of it. But I was wrong with that. So this is definitely happening. To add something to the whole Foley process, I think for me, crafting those sounds, the thing that I started out as a dialogue editor and then did a lot of sound effects editing and also mixed a couple of films. I had the whole picture before I became a Foley artist. I edited tons of Foley for years before I recorded my first take as a Foley artist. So, knowing this whole back end of the process, like how it has to be sounding in the re-recording stage, that helped me a lot, to be the best version of myself as a Foley artist.
Yeah, I can relate to that in the fact that when you learn about audio integration in video games, it's the same. When you know how they will be used and what challenges wait for you when you integrate the sound, then you get a whole new perspective how to create or record sounds. And maybe talking about tools or equipment for Foley recording. Do you have anything people don't know about? And I'm trying to elaborate a bit. I had a guest on my podcast who was a field recordist who suggested a very cool like tripod boom pole in one, which was so good that I actually bought it, and I'm really happy because now my pack is even lighter when I travel. So if you have any cool tools, or I mean even microphones, we already spoke about the one, but if you have anything where it's like, hey, I'm not sure everyone knows about this is very helpful, do you maybe have some tips?
Yeah, the accelerometer is definitely my number one tip, also for field recording. My number two tip is the preamps from ADT Audio. Shoutouts Rosemarie Berges and Gerd Jüngling, rest in peace, developed all those brilliant tools. And the preamp has one cool thing, that is the high cut and the low cut you have on the preamp itself as a knob. And that enables me to adjust that according to the scene. Or if I want to make an ensemble kind of setting, with many people walking, I can record one track a bit more present, and then in the next take I cut a little bit more of the high end and make it then already in the background. So that is for me like the most important tool when I record. And also the transient designer from SPL. I mean, that is a standard for many people who record Foley.
Yeah.
And this thing is always in my chain. With a little bit of attack reduction and sustain reduction. And then the next thing, I also use EQ and compression already when I record. And then I even use a mastering kind of summing Baritube channel from Tegla Audio. So that is my recording chain. And for game audio, I use a Sunken CUX 100K. That is not the CO 100K. The CUX is a cardioid, and therefore it's not taking so much of the room, and it records up to 100K. So if you record in 192, then you have like the best possible options to pitch down sounds later on.
Yeah. And
then a little other trick that maybe people know is I'm using an SM7B for a low-end addition to my signal. So, in non-ideal rooms, you always have the problem, or often have the problem, that you get a very intense low-end response when you start walking in the room. And then you have to be eventually, cut up to 150 hertz or something on your main mic. And to get the low end back into the signal, we developed something with Fabian Weichmann, shoutouts, that we use a SM7 and then give it a very intense low end boost, high cut, and compression. And that is then mixed into the main mic so that we can get the low end back into the signal. And even if you have a good room where you can have a full frequency recording on your main mic, you can use the SM7 to create proximity.
Oh, that's nice.
And that's something that maybe some people thought of. I talked with someone from the US who was also looking into my coaching. And then he said, yeah, that's something I heard from my game audio friends. They record like that. I said, oh, interesting. I'm not the only one. I thought I was the only one. But of course, there are always people that are better than you or know more or have already done the thing you think you invented. So no problem.
Of course.
But
it does matter.
But yeah, that's really something I also enjoy every day.
No, that's really cool. I also used it once with like 2 microphones, and because I wanted the low end of the one microphone, but I didn't think about like having this as a permanent setup. And that's a really good tip, and I will look into that because I'm in a non-idle room right now, so that speaks to me. Thank you for the tip. That's cool.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And yeah, going a bit more into like the future of Foley. Maybe you have some thoughts about how you see like the future of Foley and sound design evolving in the future, especially regarding maybe the rise of AI tools or even like AI sound creation? Do you have any thoughts about that?
As I said before, that my vision for Foley is that every sound designer starts recording their own Foley or custom sound effects. And I think there will be always work for the 1,000 professional Foley artists in the world that do the work that no sound designer can pull off in his or her home studio, except for me.
So you're not into the rise of AI at all?
I think it's a useful thing, and I'm also aware of its, potential in both ways. So I'm not scared.
Same,
this
yeah.
This is something we can use and make the world better, or we can use it and make the world even worse. And the same goes for audio.
Yeah, exactly. I have one other question that's a bit unrelated, so the segue is a bit harsh, but I wanted to ask that as well.
Yeah.
Maybe thinking back on the many projects you have, do you have something in mind which was especially challenging, something that you like really, had your head against the wall until you figured it out? Some problem that you had, and like at some time it made click.
Related to Foley, everything.
Everything.
Like I started out in a non-ideal room that was an ADR studio, and I had to record a feature film in 10 days.
Wow.
And the first day there was not even sound coming out of the studio, because it was the first day that we just built the studio, and I cabled everything, I hooked everything up myself, and on Friday night there was no sound. So we had to figure that out on Monday, and on that weekend I was pouring the concrete surfaces, the modular ones, and I bought props with my mentor in the construction supply store and on flea markets. And then I had to just start with that complex cinema project with like children, like teenage film with 5 protagonists. Like you had always like 5 protagonists walking and then 10 antagonists. And it was like just impossible to come up with a good result. I mean, we managed it. The film was mixed. Everyone was happy. But this whole learning curve, being there in the studio for 3 or 4 years, every day was a challenge. And only when I worked with Fabian Weickmann for 1.5 years straight through, then it made click. Before that, it was absolute challenge from the first hour to the last hour of the day. And I had to train the recordists. I had to train myself as a Foley artist. And then once that was done, and I had a professional Foley mixer that had the same level of experience that I had. So really, Fabian Weickmann is one of the best recordists I know, also for ADR. And he's a brilliant sound designer, sound effects editor. So we worked 1.5 years together. And I think after not even 1 year, it made click. And then we could finish all the TV movies in 3 days.
Nice. That's good to hear, because like this every day a struggle. I can relate to that. Sometimes you have like this list of things to do and you have no idea where to start. So it's good to hear that you can go from there to where you are now. So very encouraging.
But I'm enjoying the struggle. Now I'm in my new studio and I had to deliver that first linear project in here. So luckily I had enough time. But I invested more than double of the time that I was paid for in order to get a good result. And I enjoyed the process, because that enabled me to know my room better and to try different things. And it's enjoyable. But of course, now I have a lot of experience that makes it easier, to get that exploration done.
Yeah, of course. And then you have a bit more time to, just like you said, to experiment, because you can get all of the basics done. For sure, because you know your stuff. Yeah. Very cool. Yeah, I think that's all of the questions I have. So the only thing that's left to do really is if you have any projects you're working on or anything else you want to shout out, feel free. The floor is yours.
At the moment, I'm just happy that I'm now in the freelance world basically the first time after I started in the post-production and video games industry. I was kind of freelancing as a rapper for many years, but now that I'm able to do that on that level, with that kind of also appreciation from the world with this content, and then being able to coach people and to mentor people and to give all these things back and to see people, evolving and appreciating it and getting better and sharing that creativity and being positive about all the things in life and enjoying myself and being able to potentially work with really like high-end clients and that people value me for that now, so that I could prove myself for the last 15 years, that I'm now at that level. It's just really like, I'm so thankful for that.
Very happy to hear that, and well deserved. And good luck with your path. So far it seems to work. I really like your content, so I will be following you. And,
thanks for inviting me. It's a real honor, and I wish you also all the best for everything that comes for you.
Thank you. Looking for more audio-related podcasts to listen to? We're part of the Audio Podcast Alliance, featuring a hand-picked selection of the very best podcasts about sound. Be sure to hear the latest episodes from our friends in the community at audiopodcast.org. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please consider supporting on patreon.com/fieldandfoley or ko-fi.com/fieldandfoley, where you gain early access to episodes in lossless format and can submit questions for our guests. Thank you for listening.